Hi everybody, this is Learning Unit 4 of Entrepreneurship, and this learning unit is all about growth management and growth strategies. This particular recording will be on theme 1, and we will be discussing managing growth. So, growth and the learning outcomes that pertain to this theme, critically discussing the impact of growing businesses in the South African economy. It is so important that we've got businesses that contribute to the economy, and if you're growing, it means that you're making more money. But not only are you making money for you, we also know that the government likes to tax our money, right? So with that tax money, the government can then spend your money. So it is important, but obviously, I make a joke of it. However, it is important for the running or the prime or optimal running of the economy. Then we're also going to examine the characteristics of growing businesses in relation to the functions of planning and control. Planning and control we discussed in the previous learning outcome, and this would be then this time in particular for growth and the growth process. Then we're going to formulate growth objectives for a business and then apply the growth stages to any given scenario. And this is the practical part that you will probably have to answer when it comes to your assignments and your exams. So, introduction. Growth is the hallmark of the success of a business. Growth brings with it the promise of expansion, new premises, greater profitability, an increase in personnel, greater influence in the labor market, pulling power, and emphasis on the word power, to attract more highly developed people, or a general increase in resources. These, in turn, promise further growth and even higher status in the business community for the owners. Remember the movie that I advocate, The Social Network? I actually ended up watching the whole movie because, yeah, I love that movie. But what happens is that if Facebook grows, and I think in that movie it's like they literally did the movie over 4 years, from the beginning of Facebook into 4 years. So in that fourth year, the scene was that Mark Zuckerberg was now being sued because he obviously stole the idea from those guys and he ran with it better, and hence we have Facebook today. But in essence, the point of the matter is that in those 4 years when he was being sued, he was basically saying, you know what, I've got so much power right now, I can buy whatever ever and make it my, my garage or whatever. So with growth, you become so powerful, and that's why people seek growth to be able to have that greater influence, like they say, in terms of expansion, new premises, greater profitability, but also greater influence in the labor market and pulling power. We know that money gives you power, and hence people and entrepreneurs especially want to grow. So, why does South Africa need businesses that grow? SMMEs have been identified by the government as a priority in creating jobs to solve the high unemployment rate in South Africa. And that goes for most economies. Small enterprises contribute probably half of the GDP. So they do play a very important, pivotal role in the income of any government. So the promotion of entrepreneurship and small business development was seen by the new South African government in 1994 as a way of addressing job creation, poverty alleviation, equity and participation, wealth creation, as well as social stability. The desire to grow, growth and the desire to grow should be embedded in the mindset of the person starting or creating a new business venture. If you're going to start a business, and we said that that is what separates an entrepreneurial venture from a small business. If stop seeking growth, that makes you a small business manager. Whereas if you continuously seek growth, that makes you more of an entrepreneurial venture. So the will to take advantage of the growth potential of a venture relates mostly to the need for achievement. So it is embedded in you as an entrepreneur that, you know what, I want to achieve this goal. I want to make this money. I want power, money, power, and respect. And then the need to grow the venture can therefore be attributed to the following needs of the entrepreneur. We've talked about the need for achievement, but also personal wealth and power, like I've said. And then growth is as an objective for the business venture. And now we've just discussed the growth pertaining to the entrepreneur, but now for the venture, the potential for growth distinguishes an entrepreneurial venture from a small business. I've discussed that. We know this. That was probably one of the first things that we've learned about entrepreneurial ventures. But what do you need to consider when you want your business to grow? And this is what is important. Number one, growth as an objective for the business venture, you need to consider growth and strategy. There must be a long term plan and objectives for achieving growth. You do not just, get growth. You plan for it. You remember, in your business plan, you projected that you're going to grow by how much over this time, and hence it must be part of your strategies. Strategies can focus on internal or external growth, and that's what we're also going to learn. What is internal growth and what is external growth? And then growth targets need to be set, and the expansion strategy must be consistent with the capabilities of the firm. So, growth and resources, all the strategies of the venture must have action plans to achieve these goals, and each action plan must clearly set out which resources are required. And these resources can include capital, people, and assets. So, if you're going to grow, you probably need more, a bigger premises, you need more people, you need more capital, and each plan must then clearly set out how much of each you need. And then lastly, growth and risk. The entrepreneur must know that growth carries a large degree of risk, because think about it, all of this money that you're going to put into that growth. And again, we've touched learning unit 3, we discussed risk, in terms of growth. We and if you're going to spend more, that means there is a higher risk that you are picking up. So growth will intensify the demands made on the resources, which can only be countered by an ability to attract resources. And then growth also implies developing new business, which means venturing into the unknown. So again, that risk factor. And then controlling and planning for growth. Growth presents the need for strategic objectives, resources, and investment decision making, and is therefore a process that must be planned for and controlled. And the following factors need to be considered. Number one, desire. The desire for growth must be reflected in the entrepreneurial vision. That desire, you speak it in your vision, you explain it further in your mission, and then you also then implement it in your objectives. This is often reflected, again, like I said, in the vision statement. And then in terms of potential, the potential for growth must be reflected in the mission of the enterprise. The mission statement tells the stakeholders how the venture plans to accomplish this said vision. It should stretch the venture into making maximum use of its capabilities and exploiting its competitive potential. Then, in terms of direction, the direction of growth must be indicated in the business strategy. There must be strategic objectives, and these need to be quantified. Strategic objectives also relate to growth targets, market development, market share, as well as market positioning. So you're basically saying, if I'm going to grow, these are the customers that, because you're not just going to grow your premises, right? You're expecting that you're going to also grow in terms of the money that you make, and the money that you make comes from your market. So it is important to then say how your growth targets relates to your market. So then there's also management of the growth. Growth must definitely be managed. It requires planning, organization, direction, and control activities. These are the stages of of starting up the entrepreneurship venture, and we discussed these in chapter 8. Lastly, achievement. The achievement of growth is a result of the decision-making processes that go with a venture. The entrepreneur must control these through his or her power and leadership strategies. And what is business growth? Growth is critical to entrepreneurial success and is one of the factors that actually distinguishes the entrepreneurial venture from the small business. We know this by now. Growth must be an objective and strategy for the venture, and it must be managed. So in other words, if you say you're going to grow, you must you must plan it. You don't just it doesn't just happen. It is planned for, and like we've just discussed, it is executed from the desire all the way unto the achievement. And there are a variety of means to ensure or to measure this growth, and then hence the characteristics of growing companies. So in other words, what are these means for measuring growth? If we're going to measure growth, we measure it through the characteristics of growing companies. Number one, we can measure it through a robust financial position. A business with a robust financial position has a balanced combination of working capital and equity. So it means your money is right? You know you are growing. Yes, your capital is growing, but also your equity, which is so much more important, is also growing. The second characteristic of growing companies is a strong brand identity profile and image. You can imagine you've been in the business maybe for a year now. Now people are starting to get to know you. That's how you also know that you're growing. Businesses with a strong brand identity profile and image have loyal customers whose needs they fully understand. And then another characteristic of growing companies is a market leading position. High growth businesses tend to occupy market leading positions, right? It means that customers are choosing you over your competitors. You are, known as the number one of what, and that's how you know you've got a market leading position. So you can think of a company or a brand that is top of mind in any industry. If you think about cool drink, Coca-Cola, for example, that's a market leading position. Mercedes Benz, market leading position. And then competition of product differentiation, quality, and service rather than price. And I love this because a lot of businesses that grow, they don't really care about providing the lowest price, but what they care about is product differentiation. So having the most unique product, filled with innovation, quality, and service. Again, Mercedes Benz is the epitome example, or is it epitome? Epitome example of this what is it, differentiation, focus rather than price focus. High growth businesses recognize that people do not buy on price alone. Oh my gosh, that is, yeah, that sentence alone is, yeah, it's sending me. But anyway, they also focus on adding value, product differentiation, and in quality. And in fact, if you put this value added, or if you add value, differentiation and quality, you actually are saying to yourself, you're actually putting more cost on your product, which means you're going to have to actually charge more. But because people, they trust your brand, your total quality management is in place, they will definitely pay whatever it is that you charge. And then the last characteristic is that of high performance management team. Mark Zuckerberg, another example, when he started his business, yes, he was selecting his friends, etc. But he specifically chose, like for instance, the guy, his best friend, who he ended up, having a fight with. He specifically chose him because not only was he good at coding, because Mark Zuckerberg's roommates, they were also programmers, right? But because his friend was not only a programmer, he also had money. That's how he selected him. So you need a high performance management team, and the high performance management team includes functional specialists and experts. So if you have those, then you know that your business is growing. And then what is this process of growth? The entrepreneur must constantly view the growth and development of a venture for from four major perspectives. So if growth is going to happen, it happens in four major stages. Number one, it's financial growth. Financial growth measures the additional value that the organization is creating and is an important measurement of the success of the venture, right? So measurement of financial growth can be expressed in a number of ways. This could include increase in turnover, increase in your total assets, increase definitely in profit, increase in return on investment, especially for your investors, and then increase in any other performance measure. And then the second one is strategic growth. Strategic growth refers to the changes that take place in the way the venture interacts with its environment. It is necessary for the company to adapt and change its strategy as it develops and grows. Again, we've discussed that in the previous chapter when we were talking about business plans. Remember that business plan that you formulate because you are growing, right? With growth comes strategic changes. So like in that learning unit, I made an example about thinking that your business is going to go left, only to find out that your business is going right, and that's actually a better position for it to be going. So that means you're going to need to redefine your business. You're going to need to rethink your strategy, and you will have to then adjust the strategy and adapt it to your change. So strategic objectives change as the organization moves through the stages of the life cycle. Think Huawei and how it entered the South African market. When Huawei first came in, it was just this cheap product that anybody could buy. But now Huawei have changed their strategy because they've grown so much. Now they've invested so much into research and development. They are actually even competing with the likes of Apple and Samsung. And then the fourth one is structural growth. Structural growth relates to the changes taking place in the way the venture organizes its internal systems, its managerial roles and responsibilities, reporting relationships, communication links, and resource control system. Again, I'm going to use that movie as an example. When Facebook started to grow, not only did they grow, in terms of the people that they were hiring, etc. They even had to do like a change of shares because they were not going public, but I can't remember what the word is, but they had to restructure, the shares and the way in which they were structured because they were growing. So their internal systems, their managerial roles, their responsibilities, reporting relationships, because now remember, if you're an entrepreneur, you start the business on your own, right? And it's your business and it's all good and well. But the minute you start growing, you start hiring more people, then your structure changes. Then you grow further, and then you need to hire even more people, and then you have to grow, change your structure again. So with this change and the growth, you need to the growth also means that it structurally you are growing. So yeah, then the organization then needs to develop and change its structure to meet the demands of this change and growth. And then the structure of the organization represents a response to the contingencies of size, technology, strategy, and environment. And then the last one, organizational growth. Organizational growth relates to changes that take place in the organization's process, its culture, and attitudes as it grows and develops. Because with more people come different cultures, and maybe you find that you guys used to do things in a certain way, but now because somebody else is hired who has maybe a different cultural, inclination, you all develop and together. There are therefore changes in the entrepreneur's role and leadership style as the organization moves from being small to a large company. If you're a small company, maybe you're much more friendlier, you're much more approachable, you've got an open door policy. But the minute you're like a CEO of a large company, you no longer have that open door policy because you've got much bigger fish to fry, and you can therefore then hire somebody else to have the open door policy. So in the beginning, you run the business yourself, right? As you grow, you get others to run the business for you as you take up an executive role. And then what are the stages of growth? To understand and manage growth, it is essential to understand the concept of the venture life cycle and its underlying characteristics. So any venture has a life cycle. Even products have a life cycle. The life cycle follows the evolution of a business venture from the pre-startup phase until its decline. So when you're starting your business, you can imagine you've got zero sales, and then you start advertising, etc. Customers start to getting to know you, your sales start to increase, and then comes a time when you've reached your peak. I think, for instance, like Facebook, I don't think Facebook will grow beyond what it is right now. I think it is really at its peak, and all it is to maintain it by keeping on with innovations like they're trying to do. But I do believe that eventually, we're gonna get tired. I'm already tired of Facebook. I don't even use Facebook anymore. But there's gonna come a time when maybe something else comes in, and then we're just like, you know what, we don't like Facebook anymore. I was going to say something which is inappropriate, but yeah, we don't want Facebook anymore. We are moving on to another product, and that would mean its decline. But then you get products such as Coca-Cola, for instance, that business started, right? It went from the pre-startup phase all the way until its peak, but Coca-Cola is still until today operating at its peak. So they call it plateau. Some companies, they plateau rather than decline. So it does depend on the industry, but never mind that. You could also be in a high growth industry, but because of the way in which you develop yourself, that means you don't then get to the decline phase. And then knowing what can be expected at the different stages of growth helps the entrepreneur to expect what may lie ahead, so that he or she can plan to meet these challenges. I've seen that I've underlined these sentences, but I really think this sentence should be like double underlined it and put in bold. I'll repeat it again. Knowing what can be expected at the different stages of the growth helps the entrepreneur to anticipate what may lie ahead, so that he or she can plan to meet these challenges. So for instance, you are growing, right? If you do not plan for growth, then it means you're not going to plan to get better, bigger premises. You're not going to plan to get your people, etc. Hence, it's so important. You need to plan for growth, because you don't want to find yourself with too many people that are working in the same premises, etc., etc. You need, I don't know how to state it. You need to plan for your growth.
Companies go through different development stages over time, and nowhere is it said these phases should coincide with an industry's development stages. That's why it is very important for managers to recognize these stages and the possible challenges and obstacles they will likely face in each phase. This would help them manage change more effectively and apply different approaches to be successful. We can identify 7 development stages in a company's life cycle. Each is unique and represents a challenge from a different perspective. Typically, a company's life cycle starts with a seed stage. Then, if things go well, a startup will be formed. Once the startup grows, will be in growth stage, followed by the establishment and expansion phases. The final 2 stages of a company's development are maturity and possibly an exit. Let's dig deeper and describe each of these stages in more detail. The seed stage starts when a business idea is born. This is when you decide to set up a company. However, before starting it, it would be reasonable to verify the feasibility of your business idea. Discussions with other people can be fruitful. Industry specialists, business associates, and even family and friends can help you formulate your idea and decide on a plan of action. An entrepreneur must imagine the whole process and make sure there is a match between the business scope and his personal background, experience, skills, and passions. You will have to make several decisions related to business planning, ownership structure, staff recruitment, and financing. Having a clear idea how the venture will be financed and what resources you will need in the first months of operation is critical, given that during this period, the new company will likely operate producing no revenues and will incur significant costs. If you plan to contact investors, present to them a well-thought-out business plan that includes a 3 to 5 year projection of financials. If everything goes well in the seed stage, you can form a startup company. Studies have shown this is the riskiest stage over the entire life cycle. 90% of startup companies fail, so founders must be careful in this phase. Usually, during the startup phase, the firm can take one of its products or services to market and see if clients perceive it in a positive way. Active listening allows for much needed fine-tuning and product improvement. In addition, the firm must focus on building a lasting relationship with its first clients. Using cash flow in a reasonable manner is high on the list of priorities. In addition, the time to take products to market is crucial at this stage. as it would allow the company to register revenues and cover some of its expenses. Once a company takes its product to market and starts selling it to an increasing number of customers, it enters the growth stage. This is when the majority of companies reach break even and are generating sufficient revenues to cover their expenses. Two conflicting phenomena occur here. The company needs its founders' attention for multiple issues, like customer satisfaction management, administrative tasks, management of daily activities, and employee feedback. But she shouldn't miss the big picture and underestimate her role as a company head. That's why it's time to think about hiring personnel who can take over some of the founder's responsibilities. Once they are on board, the founder must think about how to define and communicate the firm's goals and how to motivate staff towards the firm's vision. It's highly likely the company must invest in new management and accounting systems at this stage. To cope with increased competition, the company should continue to invest in innovation and advertising. By the onset of the establishment phase, the company's operations are standardized, and it has a stable stream of revenues. The focus falls on implementing sound business practices and on boosting productivity through automation and outsourcing. It is likely the founder must delegate some further decision-making authority to division heads and consultants. Companies that have done a good job in the growth and establishment phases will probably enter the expansion stage. It consists of geographical expansion or expansion across other products or distribution channels. When going internationally, a new set of topics arises. You have to wonder if the existing capacity is going to cover the expected demand you will have in the new markets. What are the competitive advantages of your products in these markets? How are you going to deliver your products locally? Will you have a website in English only? Are you going to accept online payments? Of course, having a successful business locally does not mean this will transfer into an immediate international success. After a while, a company that has successfully gone through the expansion stage enters maturity, which is characterized by stable sales and profits. Growth of revenue slows down, but that doesn't mean these aren't good times for the firm's owners. The beginning of the maturity phase is when they make the most money. However, the maturity phase can also be characterized by a strong level of competition, which results in losing market share. Many mature companies try to sustain their business by finding new business opportunities and fueling the growth of the mature part of their business. At this stage, shareholders must decide whether to expand the business even further or exit the investment. An exit typically consists of selling the company to another firm operating in the same industry or to financial investors. These are the life cycle stages a company typically goes through. Understanding what can be expected in each is a must for anyone who wants to start a business.
I love this video. This video is literally entrepreneurship. It's literally what we are doing. Okay, and my slides don't want to move. There we go. Okay, so stages of growth, right? Number one, we've got the pre-startup phase, but of course the video was a little bit more detailed. Like they had the seed stage, which I love because it is a realistic. It is realistic. Remember with that seed stage, that's when you're doing the planning. So yeah. Anyway, with the pre-startup phase, this is the incubation phase or the pre-birth process, means taking up all the necessary steps to reach startup. Three components contribute to growth in the small business. Number one, the starting resources, and we've like so many of the learning units we've covered have talked about resources, the actual business itself, and strategy. We've discussed it again also in this chapter, but also in other learning units as well. It is important to identify the entrepreneur's position with regards to these components before the business is established. Stage number two is the startup or the infancy stage. In the startup stage, entrepreneurs may struggle to break even as they introduce their new products. In this stage, growth is slow. There was one learning unit where I mentioned the fact that in the beginning stages, I think it was the one about risk. In the beginning stages, all you're doing is paying, but nothing of the money is coming in. So this stage is a very difficult stage to go through, probably one of the toughest stages, because even in the video that we've just showed, they explain how it is probably the most difficult one. So the key factors that you need to consider in this stage is timing, flow of funds, and the start of your business. Stage 3, which is breakthrough of the growth stage. In the breakthrough stage, the rate of growth accelerates very quickly. Yes, it started slow, but now you're starting to pick up. And this momentum, this is so important. Remember when we talked about growth, we also talked about managing growth, and that's where the management now starts to kick in, because growth accelerates and resources now become under major pressure, and then competition may become stronger as well, so you've got double problems. And remember in the video, the lady was saying that once the business starts to grow like that, that's when the the entrepreneur is being pulled from different directions, and then you need to start hiring people that are actually going to take up some of these responsibilities for you. So problems begin to surface in the following areas: appointment of personnel, because you have to grow; cash flow, because there's so much coming in but also so much going out, you can't, you actually don't know what's going on; as well as then delivery and production. You can imagine with regards to production, you've got much more products that you need to source or produce, and yeah, it can be a lot. So you can imagine if you didn't plan for growth, what you going to do. It's like maybe if you like baking cakes, and in a day you maybe bake like 1, 2, 3 cakes, and then all of a sudden you say sudden your business grows a lot, and now all of a sudden you've got like 15 orders of cake. Huh? You need to appoint personnel, you need cash flow. And the thing is, do you even have this cash flow? And then you also need to consider how you're going to deliver your products, and definitely your production. Is your kitchen still enough to produce those 15 cakes versus if it was only 3? And then stage number 4 is maturity. In this stage, the entrepreneur must learn to manage time and to delegate. The entrepreneur must rely increasingly on other people to perform major functions. And key issues are those of expense control, like so important, and I've stressed it now, productivity, and entry into the niche market. By this stage, the company should be enjoying retained profits as well as the benefits of secured long-term goals, because now you're trusted, you've managed to navigate that murky growth phase, or the murky breakthrough and growth stage, and now you're mature, you've done this for a while, you now know what to expect. You can even project your growth and know that in 2 years you're going to need better premises, etc., etc. And then the last stage, decline or rejuvenation. Some ventures can stay in the maturity stage for extended periods of time. I've explained with Coke, for instance. I've talked about Facebook and how it's probably at that extended period of time. But I'm actually interested to see how Facebook is doing. I wonder if they are continuing to grow or if they've reached a plateau. Decline will only occur if the business does not constantly develop new and innovative ideas. And again, another reason why Facebook is so important as an example, because they do continue to grow. They did not just stay as Facebook, they've bought so many companies, and we've talked about internal growth versus external growth. So not only did they grow internally, they've also grown externally in terms of mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, etc., etc. So think also about new product development in cars, right? If you release a car in 2019, the same car that you were selling in 2019 that everybody wanted to buy, nobody in 2024 wants to buy it anymore. So if you're not going to come up with a new car, nobody's going to buy it. So you need to constantly develop yourself, and this can be also in the form of new products or new product development. Key factors during the growth stages. The entrepreneur must understand the key factors of the specific managerial actions necessary during the growth stages. Number 1, control, and then responsibility, tolerance of failure, personnel failure ish, right? And uncontrollable. This one, the last one, is resonating with me, because growth can be scary. Again, if not planned for and managed well, it can actually take take down a business. And that's it for this chapter. In summary, we discussed managing growth. We've also discussed the characteristics of growth, and we know now that you can characterize it by the money that it's making, the assets, etc., as well as then the stages of growth. And that's it for this learning outcome. Thank you.